Chapter 14. I still can't believe we got all the money so fast, Augie said. It is pretty amazing. 3 days to raise $400, I said. I thought we got more than that. We did. $23 more, I admitted. And what are we going to do with that? I thought we could buy something else for the class. Maybe some turtles? That would be nice, Augie said. You want me to carry the money for a while? I'm okay. The money was still inside the cookie tin, which was inside the plastic grocery bag I was carrying. You seem a lot more relaxed about the money, I commented. I am, Augie agreed. How come? I just started to think about it. Who in their right mind would figure the two of us would be carrying around over $400 in a cookie tin in a shopping bag? I guess you're right, I agreed as I sat down on the bench at the bus stop. What I still don't understand, though, is why do we have to go halfway across the city to get this snake? Because you can't just go down to the pet store at the mall and get a snake. I've seen exotic animals in the mall pet store, Augie said. Lizards, tarantulas, and I'm sure I've seen a boa in one of the aquariums at the back. They have a boa, I admitted, but not a good one. What do you mean, not a good one? It just doesn't look, right. It didn't look right? Augie asked in disbelief. I'm taking a 2-hour bus ride because you don't think the snake looks pretty enough? I didn't say pretty. I said it doesn't look right. If the color is wrong, then maybe it isn't healthy. We don't want to give him a sick snake, do we? I guess not. Here comes the bus, Augie said. The bus slowed down and pulled over to let us on. We deposited our tokens and wobbled down the aisle as it pulled back into traffic. We sat down at the very back. So, where are we going again? Augie asked. It's called Reptile World. It's a special type of pet store. Nothing furry or cute. The only mammals in the whole place are things like mice and rats. Why only mice and rats? Well, you wouldn't want to feed a puppy or a kitten to a snake or alligator, would you? I asked. That's what they use the rodents for. Reptile chow. So, all they have is reptiles? Augie asked in disbelief. Yep, scorpions, tarantulas, all sorts of snakes, iguanas, Gila monsters, and alligators and caiman. That's where I got Ollie from. They have over 24 alligators, including one that's almost 9 feet long. Who would buy a 9-foot alligator? Augie asked. Nobody. That's why it's that big. He was once a little guy, but nobody ever bought him, so now he's sort of like the store's mascot. Say, Augie said, I never really thought about it, but your alligator's still growing, right? Of course. He's twice as big as when I got him. So what are you going to do with him when he gets to be as big as the one at the store? Augie asked. I'd been thinking about that myself. 9 feet long was maybe 10 years away, but even a 4-foot gator was more than I ever wanted to share a bedroom with. I'll think of something, I said with a shrug. Maybe I'll give it to you as a birthday present. Funny, I wanted to change the subject. I called and they told me there are over 24 boa constrictors in stock, so we'll be able to pick out a good one. We'll take any one you want. You're the expert. I'll be happy as long as I don't have to handle them. But you like snakes, I protested. No, I don't. They give me the creeps. But I've seen you holding Bogart. You used to hold him and did you ever notice when I did that? Augie asked. I shook my head. When the girls in the class were around. I didn't want them to think I was a wimp or nothing. Can you honestly say that you like snakes? He asked. They're interesting animals. Yeah, but that's not what I asked. Well, they're not my favorite, I admitted, but they are Mr. Johnston's, and that's what's important. Speaking of Mr. Johnston, I still don't know how you didn't do better on that test. Hey, I'm happy. I passed it. But just barely. You know that stuff really well. You know it better than a 62%. 62 isn't bad, for me. I'm okay with that mark. But maybe Mr. Johnston would let you take it again, and you could get better than that. Or worse. I don't think it matters if I write the test 1 more time or 10 more times. I'm not going to get much better than a 62. But maybe you should rewrite the test, Augie suggested. Me? I got a 94. But you could have done better. You could have got perfect, Augie said. Perfect would be good, but I'm happy with my mark. And so am I, Augie said. So let's drop it, okay? I nodded. Maybe he was happy with it. But I knew he could do better, and so did Mr. Johnston. He and I had a talk after class today. I told him how Augie knew all the things when we talked to him, and how sometimes he just didn't put it down what he knew. Mr. Johnston said that that was interesting, and he wanted to try an experiment. He was going to give Augie an oral test, ask the questions and let Augie talk the answers. I didn't know how Augie would feel about being an experiment, but I knew he'd get over it if his marks shot up. Reptile World was very different from any other pet store I'd been to in my whole life. My father had driven me here about a year ago when we bought Ollie. Rather than being in the mall with cute little kittens and puppies in display cases in the front windows, it was located in an industrial plaza set back from the road. If you didn't know where it was, you would miss the sign above the door of the store. The place smells like your bedroom, Augie said when we walked in. Gee, thanks. I would have argued, but I knew he wasn't saying that to hurt my feelings. It was true. There was a kind of musty, almost swampy smell. I knew how to get rid of it, change the water in Ollie's pen every day. I also knew that I liked my fingers more than I disliked the smell. The alligator pit here was located in the back corner of the store, and I figured they weren't any anxious to change the water there than I was to change Ollie's. I don't like the look of those, Augie said, gesturing to some small signs posted on the wall just inside the door. The first one said, "Shoplifters will be eaten." The second read, "Not responsible for missing possessions or fingers. Don't reach into pens." Well, the last one had bold lettering that stated, "Watch your children. Alligators don't like to share." "At least you can't say they didn't warn you," I said. "Come on, the snakes are over this way." We walked down aisles filled with glass aquariums and terrariums. Each held a different species or size of a reptile. I wanted to stop and stare at the amazing collection of creatures, but I knew we didn't have much time. Augie said he had to be back home by 2 o'clock because he had to go somewhere with his family. I headed straight to the snake area. Even if I hadn't known where it was, it still would have been easy to locate. Suspended from the ceiling, coiled and wrapped around a fake tree branch, was a gigantic snake. It was made out of plastic or rubber or something, and the whole thing was suspended from the ceiling by wire. It was an exact model of the largest anaconda ever recorded. From end to end, it was over 30 feet long. I stopped in the middle of the floor, surrounded on all sides by glass pens, some almost as big as my whole bedroom, filled with all types of snakes. Some cages held more than one type. I knew it was important which ones and which sizes shared space. Different types of constrictors, snakes that squeeze their prey, can be together as long as they are roughly the same size. But those that are different, even if they are the same type, have to be separated so the big ones don't eat the small ones. "Why would somebody want one of these as a pet?" Augie asked. He was standing in front of a pen holding a large hooded cobra, one of the most deadly poisonous snakes in the world. I shook my head. "I don't know. Lots of people would think that somebody would have to be crazy to keep a boa constrictor. Or an alligator," Augie added with a smile. "Or an alligator," I agreed. "But some people keep rattlesnakes and cobras as pets. I heard you can get the poison gland removed." "And then they can't bite you?" Augie asked. "No, they could still bite you. They just don't inject poison when they bite." "Oh, that's better." "It is," I said. "Do you want to hear a story?" "Will it gross me out?" Augie asked. "Probably. You know that rattlesnakes live in places like deserts, right?" "If you say so. And deserts are really hot in the day but get cold at night." "Yeah. And because snakes, like all reptiles, are cold-blooded, they need to find someplace warm to sleep at night." "Yeah. So some people go camping in the desert and they sleep in a nice, warm, snuggly sleeping bag?" "I don't think I like where this is going," Augie said. I smiled. "And in the middle of the night, while they're sleeping, the rattlesnake comes gliding along and slips down into the sleeping bag along with them." "Ugh," Augie said, shuddering. "Can you imagine waking up in the morning and feeling something moving around in the bottom of your sleeping bag?" Augie didn't say a word, but the look of disgust on his face said everything. "And as long as you don't move, you're okay. The rattlesnake won't bite you. So you have to lie there, maybe for an hour, maybe for 2 hours, not moving, and then wait until the rattlesnake finally decides to leave. You can feel it starting to slide up the side of your body, moving to the opening in the sleeping bag, and then popping out right by your face and gliding away," I said as I moved my arm snake-like up past Augie's face. "I'm never going to go camping," Augie said. "You've got nothing to worry about. There isn't a rattlesnake of that type within 1,000 kilometers of Toronto, other than in people's houses as pets." "I'm starting to think I like constrictors better all the time," Augie said. "And they're really not that dangerous, at least until they get to be that size," I said, gesturing to the ceiling. "Is that life-size?" Augie asked. I nodded. "Full-grown anaconda." "More like death-size, if you ask me," Augie said. "Can you imagine that thing creeping up on you?" "They don't usually sneak up on you," I said. "Mostly they sit up in trees like that one, and then they just drop down on top of you." Augie shuddered slightly and then took a couple of steps backwards so he was no longer directly underneath the model. I had to admit to myself that even I wanted to take a step backward. "You don't have to worry about him," a voice said behind us. Augie and I turned around to see a thin man with long, stringy hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in a while. On his chest was a badge that identified him as a staff person. "But if he was real," he continued, "I'd advise you to move really quickly before he dropped on you." "Do you know how they eat people?" he asked. "Whole, head first," I answered. "That's right," he said, sounding both surprised and happy. "Guess you know a little bit about snakes." "I know some," I said. "Most people are pretty ignorant about snakes. If you have any questions, I can answer them," he said. "If not, feel free to just browse." "We're not here to browse," Augie said. "We're here to buy a snake." "These snakes cost a whole lot of money," the man said, gesturing to the snakes in the surrounding pens. "We have a lot of money," Augie said. "I'm talking hundreds of dollars," the salesman said. We have hundreds of dollars. 400, Augie said. On you? Here? The man asked. Augie reached out and took the bag from my hand. Right here, he said, holding out the bag. $423. Are your parents here with you? He asked. No, we came on the bus, I answered. And they're okay about you doing this? Sure, yeah. Why wouldn't they be? I asked. It's just that lots of parents, especially mothers, don't like their kids to have pet snakes. Your mother is okay with this? He asked, looking directly at me. She's fine with. We're not going to keep it at either of our houses, Augie said. It's for our school, for our teacher. Your teacher? The man said, a confused look on his face. Are you two boys from Osler Senior Public School? Yeah, we are, I said, wondering how he could know that. And your teacher's Grant Johnston, right? I didn't know about the Grant part, but Johnston was right. Augie and I nodded in agreement. And that money in your bag is from every kid in your school, he added. Yeah, it is. But how did you know, I asked. The reptile world isn't that big, even in a city as large as Toronto. We heard all about it. The break-in, what happened to the boa constrictor, the school getting behind it and raising money to buy him a new one. Are you the two boys responsible for all this? Us and a girl who helped collect the money, I said. Then I want to shake your hands, the man said as he grabbed first my hand and then Augie's, shaking them enthusiastically. I felt embarrassed and more than a little goofy. We heard all about it, he said. How much money did you say you'd raised? Over $400, I said. $423, Augie corrected. And you want a boa constrictor, the man said, to replace his boa. Of course, he said. Well, $423 would get you any of the boas in this terrarium here, he said, pointing to a small glass pen beside him. There were 3 or 4 boas visible among the branches and foliage. But those are so tiny, Augie said. The largest in there is just over 2 feet. Augie turned to me. I thought you said that $400 could buy us a 3-footer. I thought it could, I said, caught unawares and feeling suddenly like I had done something wrong. It could have a year ago or so, the man said. It had been over a year since I'd been there. How was I to know that the prices had gone up? I guess that's the best we can do, I said. The important thing is that it's healthy. But we were really hoping that we could get him a bigger snake, Augie said. And you can, the man said. I don't understand, I said. I'm in charge of this department, and I'm not selling you anything at the retail cost, the man said. That didn't clear up anything for me. You mean you're going to sell us a snake wholesale? Augie asked. The man smiled and nodded. I still didn't understand. What does that mean? I asked. Augie smiled. It's sales talk. Stuff I know from my parents' store. It means that instead of selling to us at the cost the store normally charges to customers, he's going to charge us the price they pay when they buy a snake. So, you're not going to charge us $400? I asked, still feeling confused. Oh no, I'm still going to charge you $400. But for that $400, I'm going to sell you a lot more snake. You mean? He gestured to the pens behind him. There are 3 snakes in there. One is 5.5 feet long, the second just over 6 feet, and the biggest is close to 7 feet. Whichever of the 3 boas you want, it's yours for $423.